Well, thank you everyone for coming today. As you're all aware, there was an incident that occurred over the weekend involving a large group of juveniles. This, as much as you are aware, we are aware as well. The incident itself is one that we don't like to see, but they do occur. And so you have those facts related to that incident. I want to tell you what our plan is from the administration, because these things have happened in the past and we expect that they can happen in the future. Since this administration has come to be, this has been a priority. Addressing what the youth are doing in downtown Pittsburgh and around with these larger groups is a matter of importance. It's a matter of importance to public safety because it impacts citizenry. And so because of that, we want to also speak to the fact that we are aggressively addressing this. And when I mean aggressively, we're meeting with our community partners, we're meeting with our business district, we're meeting with other concerned entities about bringing a strategy that would help to shape a different culture. Our youth have an informal culture that they have created, and now we stand back and are only responding to that informal culture. Our decision is to try to provide a different culture. We want the children to be able to participate in a healthy and safe way. We want them to be participants in activities that are involved in and around downtown. But how they choose to participate needs to be dictated by some other sourcing other than what they have been doing currently. Certain behaviors that we see exhibited in downtown is not acceptable. And when it reaches those levels, it causes for a type of public safety response. We want to head off some of that activity. We are prepped and ready whenever needed to be able to do those things, but we are not choosing that to be our first level of response. So by that, we're developing strategies. Part of that strategy is, without specifics because we're still in the formation of it, what are the spaces that our youth can go to? How do we turn on spaces? How do we turn on the lights at places that allows them to gather with their friends? What is the expectation when they come in and around downtown? By setting us with some of the mentoring type of entities that communicates how you participate in a healthy way that doesn't get to these nuanced or these type of annoying type of behaviors. But secondarily, that we are clearly communicating to that those who have intent to come and do certain things downtown, that it will not be tolerated, and that when those actions occur, there will be a level of law enforcement response that's necessary. It's not the first response, but might be a necessary response whenever those situations rise to those levels. So this is what we're choosing to do. We've been meeting both in the short term and long term. We know that the draft is coming, but we're not settling all of our decisions on what we do as far as our youth engagement just based on the draft itself. That's the first stop in this journey of how we're going to address our youth and how they gather in and around Pittsburgh. We're continuing those conversations to have a long-term strategy that's an engaging, ever developing, so that we can have our youth participate in ways that we expect them, that they can enjoy the area of Pittsburgh as well. And so with that, I'll take some questions that you might have regarding some of the topics and some of the things that I spoke about. Yes, so the details, the question was there, what amount of resources were downtown? Because we know that these are issues and they impact certain times of the week and certain times of the weekend, we really try to staff our resources accordingly. We have different periods of time when we have some of this engagement. Some of it is also around the early mornings when it comes to schools and how some of those students are traversing some of the downtown area. So to your question is that we look at what activity is happening in those time periods and then try to make sure we have an appropriate response. The direct question is I don't have a total number. I do know that I was out there on Sunday myself. I was out downtown and enjoying downtown myself, and I walked over myself to get eyes on. I've witnessed about 80 kids who were congregating in a particular area after the incident, and I was relaying real-time information back to what I was seeing. And what I witnessed in those time frames were a bunch of kids who were just gathered. Some of it was they were just being kids. You know, they were just running around, horse playing and the like. And as I watched that, I wanted to see the progression of the behavior so that I had a better understanding. And then they slowly began to disperse on their own. To me, that type of activity is not one that would warrant some level of response. I understand that there are a large amount of kids that come, but they are also part of the citizenry when it comes to the city of Pittsburgh. That's why I say setting a healthy culture that allows them to figure out how they can participate. So what we would do is always respond based on the real-time intelligence that we get sometimes if we have to call in more resources, or if we have some intel that will drive our decisions if we need to bring resources that would address those issues. Well, those are all conversations that I'm willing and hopefully that we will have. I will tell you that curfews were tried in the past in the city of Pittsburgh, and just because past opportunities didn't net the results that we were expecting doesn't mean we wouldn't venture in that way. But we have to have good conversations about what it is that we expect with our curfews. But what comes with that too is a lot of resources as well. Opening up curfew centers, what's the expectation and the like. So I'm not going to say it's off the table, but it is one that we will always include in the conversations as we look down for the strategies to address this.
And when you talk about the use of pepper spray, was that warranted at that particular time?
So when you talk about, there was also a deployment of pepper spray that was by the kids themselves. So in the incident itself, there was some law enforcement action, and we're still determining to what level, I don't know, target specific, but know that what precipitated that whole issue was that pepper spray was used by the kids first, which causes a whole level of chaos, and that happens with a large amount of kids. So our officers were responding in real time to those issues, and then that's what escalated it to the point where additional law enforcement was happening. So the initial deployment was on the kids themselves.
Is this something new that they're doing now? You see more and more kids. Is there a call, a social media post, or they're just choosing to come downtown Pittsburgh to do this?
Yeah, you asked a good question about the social media push and stuff like that. We're encouraging all of our intelligence and all of our resources out to try to coordinate and get that information as quickly as possible so that we're aware of it. We do believe that there are communications that are happening in the social media that we are not aware, and that's how some of these things with these pop-ups actually occur. But I will say too, it doesn't require a social media post. These kids have naturally gravitated to this area, and I point back to recreating the culture that allows them to be accepted in. I would also say with the social media blasts that go on, stuff like that, I want to encourage the parents and the guardians to be aware of their unaccompanied children in and around. Be more aware of where those kids are because they're gravitating this area. We have kids as young as 8 up through the later teen years who are all congregating in the aggregate together. Those are some younger ages, and so just having unaccompanied kids complicates our issues. And so I just would encourage parents to be better aware of where their unaccompanied children are.
Are you concerned about the safety of Market Square on draft weekend?
I'm not concerned whatsoever about the safety of Market Square or the city of Pittsburgh at large for the reasons we understand that these issues are there. Is it ones that we want to be contending with? Absolutely not. But we are preparing because we know certain things. And so our approach is to invite them into spaces. Part of our strategy in the short term for the draft is we are creating spaces that will be communicated out and marketed that we want our kids to be able to participate. The NFL draft specifically said that they want this to be a family-friendly event. So we invite children to come down to the draft. We just prefer that they do that with their parents or guardians. They are welcome into these spaces. We don't want to exclude them from the spaces at all. This is a once-in-a-lifetime Pittsburgh event, at least in my lifetime, and so we want them to be able to experience it. The problem comes in when we have a bunch of individuals who are coming here who may not have the same intent of every person who is coming here and causing some issues. So I'm not concerned because we are resourcing those things appropriately, and part of the conversations about how we address this includes what we already know about these types of activities that occur in our downtown, so we're preparing for them.
What kind of conversations about safety are you having with the businesses in Market Square?
Say again the question.
What kind of conversations about safety are you having with the businesses?
So some of our business partners are part of our conversation. They're also part of the draft planning, and they've been included in some of these more strategic conversations. And so what we try to do is communicate out as we are able. Now that we're getting closer and closer to the draft, we have more information even made available to us. So we start talking about what expectations are in certain spaces, and we're communicating to those entities as well while we're going to choose to resource that. So they're heavily involved in, we believe in getting out good information. We're not keeping it close to the vest. We want to share this information so that it provides a comfort level not only to the citizens, but for those who are conducting business in these areas to know that we are addressing these matters appropriately. So the question was, is there anything that we were aware of that would, the notification-wise, that would help to precipitate this with any notification? And I'll just simply say on any given day, given the culture that we have, the same thing could occur again. And so that go back to my statement about the children who come down here has set up an informal culture. And based on their own activities, it's not expected that this will occur every time, but there's a potential for it to occur anytime because of the kids. Some of them are holding pepper spray. You know, we have incidents sometimes, and thank goodness it's not to a high level, where they're carrying other things that now require a law enforcement response. And so mostly it's just large amounts of kids who are doing a lot of horseplay and playing around and stuff like that. But then it takes one incident, somebody deploys to cause a type of, chaos type of an event, and then now we got a bunch of unruly kids who are acting in certain ways. So no specifics to the incident itself, but I will tell you, and we're fully aware, that we do not dismiss the potential that this can happen on any given day.
I just want to clarify something that I asked about earlier about
Yeah.
the number of officers who
Yeah.
are down there. Am I understanding this correctly when you're saying that you kind of staff down that area based on what day of the week, what
Yeah.
you guys have seen in the past? Am I understanding that you guys weren't expecting Sunday, this to happen on Sunday?
So I would tell you that the people who are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis when it comes to our areas, and I won't call them out specifically by name, but we have police officers and supervisors who understand what the normal activity is given certain times of day and days of the week. If there are surprises, if you think I would say, just based on me reporting, we could expect that behavior to happen. It happened at 5:30 on a Sunday. That's not an outlier at all. Didn't appear to be an outlier. Now, do we have specifics about the pop-up itself? I would say it has not been brought to my office that we had that information. But I'll tell you that we do know that these things can happen spontaneously through their informal ways of communicating, and we just try to be prepared based off of what we've seen in the previous. We try to use some historical data that said these are kind of the time frames where that stuff can happen, and then we try to appropriately have some resources that can respond to that if necessary.
Can you confirm the number of arrests?
I believe that, I don't think there were citations or arrests. I don't know if there were any actual arrests. Yeah.
So in total, we were originally told there were 3 juveniles taken into custody. That number is now 7. So 7 juveniles were in custody following the incident. They're facing citations for disorderly conduct.
Do you get a sense that these pop-ups are intended to create chaos, or is that just a byproduct of the problem?
I think it's a both and. I think the larger share of the children who come downtown, and I keep emphasizing that these are a large group of children. Some of these ages might be surprising to some who's coming downtown. I think the larger group is it's what they have grown to accustomed to doing because they're looking for something to do. They can hang out with their friends, stuff like that. And we expect that activity could increase as the weather gets better. But I do think there is a contingency of individuals who are part of this who probably escalate these issues, and we're trying to figure out those individuals and be able to target them specifically so that we can try this whole reset of a culture. When we find out who those informal influencers are, maybe having some mentoring moments with them to encourage them against such behaviors is what we're trying to do, and that's where we bring in some of our community partners to do that. And so we're just really engaged with different ways that we can come in and do more prevention and intervention in some of these efforts so that we don't have to move to a response, and specifically a law enforcement response. And let me share, our police officers look for opportunities to be engaged with our youth so that it is in a safe and healthy way. They do it day to day downtown. What they don't want to do is have to get to some of the behaviors that we've seen. That's not something we look forward to, nor do we choose for that to occur as our initial response. So building these relationships, building these bridges, and using our community partners to do that. You'll hear more from Chief Lando and his efforts, and more in getting into schools and communicating. That's what we want, more community-based, community-focused. It's the initiatives that I'm sending out from my point, leadership and public safety, to be engaged on those ends so that we build better bridges with our individuals and community.
You said you're not concerned about safety in Market Square during the draft. Are you concerned at all about safety on the day-to-day in Market Square?
So when we say concern for safety, I do want to clarify, because I'm the public safety director, it is a priority of mine to always be thinking in this way. So concern, I would say, I don't have any serious concern of our inability to properly be able to handle situations. That's not on a day-to-day, and it's definitely not when it comes to the draft. I have confidence on how we're doing now. I have confidence on how we're trying to address this. I do want to speak to this is an ever-evolving thing. We always have to respond to these things sometimes in real time, or if we get more data that will help us change the way we respond, and that's where I want the adaptability of those who are thinking through this to make sure they're responding in the most appropriate ways. I'll grow concern where I feel like we are not addressing those areas or those concerns in the most appropriate way, and that to this point, I don't have those concerns. Yeah.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.